The UK boasts a unique and stunning landscape defined in part by its shifting seasons and changing weather. Below this beauty lies a savage nature which can sometimes hit with little or no warning. The result can be devastating. Arctic-like winters, unimaginable floods, hurricane-force winds, baking heat, and severe droughts. Like it or not, Britain can be susceptible to some deadly weather events, even if they only occur once in a while. When the word weather comes to mind, we don't generally associate it with Britain. However, today we're going to take a look at the 10 worst weather events that shook Britain. So before we begin this list, I'd like to note that all the information that follows is from the BBC website. This will be linked down below in the description. Number 10. The Big Snow, 1947. With record amounts of snow, one of the cruelest winters in living memory couldn't have come at a worse time for war-weary Britain. Victorious but nearly bankrupt from defeating the Nazis, the country is still experiencing food rationing when 10-foot snow drifts paralyzed the country. Roads and railways were blocked, miners couldn't get to work, and London only had 6 days' worth of coal left. Meanwhile, in the countryside, the snow is so deep that the farmers couldn't reach their livestock and animals starved to death in frozen fields across Britain. I remember the snow is as high as a telegraph poles, one person recalled from this event. Coming in at number 9 is London's Great Smog of 1952. Smog in 1950s London was common, but the toxic mix of smoke and fog that descended on December 5th, 1952 was unlike anything the city had seen before. Domestic coal was low grade, and thousands of tons of stinking soot were being pumped into the city's skies daily. High pressure caused a temperature inversion, where the air is warmer aloft than at the surface, preventing the smoke from escaping upwards. With little wind to disperse the polluted air, the killer smog remained for 5 long days, leading to the premature deaths of over 4,000 people. As a result, the government introduced the Clean Air Act in Britain. Keeping the air we breathe clean will not only help preserve our environment, it will also improve our daily health. Moving into number 8, we have the Storm of the Century, 1953. Coming just one short year after the Great Smog, the Great Storm of 1953 was Britain's worst peacetime disaster on record, claiming the lives of 326 people. With no severe flood warnings in place and phone lines down, people were completely unaware of the devastation which was about to hit them. The storm surge, a combination of gale-force winds, low pressure, and high tides, brought havoc to over 1,000 miles of coastline, and 32,000 people were displaced because of the flooding. The event led to an official service for the forecast of coastal flooding and eventually the creation of the Thames Barrier. Not to mention the cleanup and recovery was pretty gruesome as well, with someone being quoted as saying, "The first thing we encountered was a large bush with 2 bodies hooked up in it." Coming in at number 7 is the Big Freeze. Now we've already been over the Big Snow, but the Big Freeze is arguably more damaging and more costly as well. The coldest winter in living memory seemed relentless, lasting for 3 long months. It was so cold that the rivers, lakes, and even the sea froze over. On February 25th, 1963, a record low of negative 21 degrees Celsius, or about negative 5.8 degrees Fahrenheit, was recorded and BBC News reported. By the time this blizzard had finally blown itself out, 200 main roads were impassable, and 95,000 miles of road were snowbound. A BBC News report was quoted as saying, "After 5 days battling, milkmen had to take the day off with exhaustion, and 15,000 London housewives went without milk." Coming in at number 6 was the drought of 1976. In contrast from the incredibly low numbers from the extreme freeze, it was the warmest 3 months in living memory, with milk blue skies and sunshine that seemed like this would never end. It should have been the perfect summer, but with the continued sunshine came the worst drought in 150 years. Rivers dried up, soil began to crack, and water supplies were on the verge of running out in Britain's most dramatic heatwave of the 20th century. The drought was so rare, Britain appointed its first ever Minister for Drought, Dennis Howell. After they installed him, it just so happens that it started to rain for the next 2 months, which is where the nickname Minister of Rain came from. The drought became so bad, in fact, that one of Britain's most popular t-shirt slogans at the time was, "Save water, bath with a friend." Coming in at number 5 is the Fastnet Race of Death, 1979. This is the greatest disaster in the history of modern sailing, resulting in one of the biggest air and sea rescue operations in peacetime Britain. The deadly storm claimed the lives of 15 people. The race from Cowes to the Fastnet Rock and then to Plymouth via the Skillies started in fine water, but terror awaited those competing. One of the sailors competing was John Roos Manieri. In his book, he describes the event. On day 2, a force 10, 60-knot storm swept across the North Atlantic with a speed that confused forecasters, scattering yachts in the treacherous waters. For 20 hours, 2,500 men and women were smashed by 40-foot breaking waves. One of the sailors that were rescued from their ship stated, "It was like standing at the bottom of the white cliffs of Dover and looking up to the top. That was the height of the waves." Up next is Britain's first Sting jet, 1987. The storm of 1987 left an indelible mark on the national conscience. Many weathermen, including Michael Fish, did not even see it coming. Douglas Hurd, the Home Security at the time, referred to it as the worst night since the Blitz. 18 people died and over 15 million trees were lost when hurricane-force winds blasted through southeast England. Weather research revealed a completely new weather phenomenon called the Sting jet. This powerful 100-mile-an-hour wind can literally smash anything in its path. It was the first Sting jet to be documented in Britain. Coming in at number 3 is the 1990 Burns Day storm. Tragedy has walked hand in hand with the storms of Britain, and the one that raged on January 25, 1990 was no exception. The storm proved to be even more deadly than the one in 1987 because it hit during the day. It caused chaos, killing some children in their schools when the roof collapsed and throwing cars off the road. 47 people lost their lives and at least 500,000 homes were without electricity. The total estimated damage was over £2 billion, or about $2.8 billion US. The Met Office had predicted the storm's progress and had also issued warnings as well. As a BBC News report stated, cars and overturned lorries blocked motorways, buildings collapsed, and power and telecommunication lines were blown down. Up next is the hottest day in history. On Sunday, August 10th, 2003, a new record was set when the temperatures reached 37.9 degrees Celsius, or 101.3 degrees Fahrenheit. Heat like this can kill, but at the end of the summer of 2003, it had claimed the lives of over 2,000 people in Britain alone, mostly through heat stroke or dehydration. The death toll across Europe was much worse, exceeding 30,000. Since this time, the government Heat Health Watch systems warns if the daytime forecast is above 30 degrees Celsius or above 15 degrees Celsius at night. As Earth Policy Institute states, though heat waves are rarely given adequate attention, they claim more lives each year than floods, tornadoes, and hurricanes combined. Finally, we have Boscastle 2004. Few parts of Britain have escaped serious flooding, but what happened in Boscastle in 2004 truly shocked the UK. August in Cornwall is one of its busiest holiday periods, but this was when unimaginable flash flooding completely submerged this picturesque Cornish village. Around 100 people had to be plucked to safety by emergency teams, some on rooftops which they had climbed to escape the rising waters when the rivers burst its banks. Close to 150 cars were swept out to sea and over 50 properties were either flooded or completely destroyed. Miraculously, no one died. Onlookers were quoted as saying, "I counted 60 cars floating down the river, upside down, lights on, beepers going, wipers going. You didn't know if there was anybody inside them." I'm not sure about you guys, but drowning inside a sinking car seems like one of the most awful and horrific ways to go. Anyway, let me know what you think in the comments below. What was the worst event in your opinion? Tell me as well as anything you'd like to see on this channel in the future. Also, one last thing. If you wouldn't mind, please hit that subscribe button so you won't miss out on any other videos. On that note, stay frosty, my friends. Take it easy.